Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 28th of February, and I want to talk about the measure of a God so that we are of sound judgment about what it is we're actually looking at. And the measure of a God, to me, is comparing God to all. And there is a distinction that we have to make. God is not all. It's a distinction that is not made in the Bible. But the God of the Bible is portrayed as all and the only one, which is wrong. But then we come to this point where we no longer understand what is actually going on. And I want to show this here, and I want to have the correct measure of a God. Now, I was watching a video, and I leave the link to it, the guy called Jordan Peterson on the Christian origins of science. And referring to Jordan Peterson, there must be a video that I haven't seen yet, Logos and Literacy. Now, he's referring to Jordan Peterson, but there are only about 2 small clips of Jordan Peterson himself in that video. So most of it is himself. But I leave it so you can see where my thoughts were coming from. So he is talking about science and religion being not separate from each other, and how science at the moment is driven by the Judeo-Christian thinking of religion. And I think at some point he says all science came from there, and no, it didn't. There was science born, knowledge born out of different views of what it is we're in. But at the moment, yes, it absolutely is driven by the Judeo-Christian idea of God and all, and God is all. It's driven by that. Now, and there are, well, let me just start with saying how I would define God. Not all, but God. God is a separate consciousness that, first of all, it needs to have knowledge of itself. It is self-conscious. And that is self-consciousness, whether that has got form in this world or not. There seem to be those that are existing outside of this world with no form, but they do exist. So self-consciousness, the gaining of knowledge, intelligence, reason, yes, and then, but then out of desire, creating outcomes. That to me is God. The fundamental building blocks of the seed, the things that need to come together to create the birth of a God. It needs to be self-conscious. It needs to gain knowledge. It has desires according to itself. And it has got free will. Yeah, it can do according to its own thinking. That is a God. Now, to say that out of these fundamental building blocks, you can only create one possible outcome is lunacy. That could go anywhere. And it could create anything. Yeah? So to say there is only one is lunacy. But to me, that is the beginning. Now, but as I said, they say the God in the Bible is the only one, and he is all. Now, and that, let's go, science was created by, or is driven by, the Judeo-Christian thinking. Now, he cited Francis Bacon as one as the leading thinkers that drove science forward. Yeah, and there Francis Bacon, and there was a quote where he says, "Man by the fall, at the same time from a state of innocence and from his dominion over nature." Man fell. By the fall, fell at the same time from the state of innocence and from his dominion over nature. And there is already the thinking that God is that which has dominion over everything else, because that is the God of the Bible and it is all. And then there's the assumption that Adam had dominion over nature. And actually that is not what the book says. That's wrong for starters. Because Adam had knowledge of nature. He had the knowledge of the animal. He knew the essence of them. He named them. And he gave that knowledge to God. God was the one that wanted to have dominion, that used that knowledge in the way of that it would serve him to have dominion. So it was not Adam that had dominion over nature. And actually Adam had he had the knowledge, but he had no idea of what to do with it. He had no intention of his own. His knowledge was just serving God, was serving another intention. It was only when they ate from the tree of good and knowledge and started reasoning about that whole thing that our own intentions should have grown. Yeah, we came to the state of self-awareness, which is one of the seeds. We are starting to gather knowledge, but we still are under the intention of the God of the Bible to have dominion over. And when you say, oh, that is what a Christian, that's a Christian. No, if you're actually a Christian, Jesus had already turned that on its head by saying I was not given to have dominion, but to serve. But, so there, Francis Bacon is already putting it on this way. Science, knowledge is to give man dominion. Because then they are in the image of the God of the Bible, who's the only one who rules all. So, and then the next thing was that, that the idea is that through the gaining of knowledge, man shall better himself. Yeah? Man will become more godly, will become better through the gaining of knowledge. Now this reality is not bearing that out at all. Man gains more and more knowledge, but he is not getting better. In fact, he's getting more and more destructive. So then, no, it cannot be true that just the gaining of knowledge leads to the betterment of man. And that is what I've said in videos before. The good and the bad is not in the knowledge, but in what you do with it, how you apply it. And then again, we're applying it according to the God of the Bible, to have dominion over. And it's leading to destruction. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it by the fruit. Anyway, and then the last thing they said was that God is he's not bound. Yeah? He is that which can create, and he's not bound. And that is also not true. Not if you see the Father, the All, is very much bound. It's not a free-for-all. You can see that. So there's the measure of the God that thinks he's not bound to what you can actually see in the creation. There's the distinction between the book of the will of God, which is the Bible, and what we actually see in all of creation, which is the all. And there you have the measure of the God by comparing the two. Yeah? So in the whole universe, in this world, in every part, you can see that God is not willy-nilly or the all. It's not willy-nilly creating this, that, and the other because it is its will and it's just going to put it there, and to hell with the consequences. If that were the measure of the all, then this whole creation would be complete chaos, which it is not. Nature is not chaos. Nature is actually a very complicated system by which different forms, different consciousnesses, different levels of consciousness can exist with each other, give and receive of each other to create a functioning, self-sustaining whole. Yeah? It's not chaos. Neither are the planets in chaos. They're not shooting left, right, and center, and everything goes where it wants to go, and everything does what it wants to do. And they are in systems. Again, they are in system, in solar system, in galaxies, and there is a system there. And that system creates order in which lots of different forms can exist with each other. That is the all. But you have the measure of the God that we are worshipping in the Bible against that. And his measure is, my will shall be done. And I shall create what I create according to my desire. So yes, our desire is part of what we create, but if we are a true reflection of the all, then it's not my will shall be done, but we consider that which is around us. And then when Jesus said knowledge is given to serve, and it is the way to life, then knowledge of others, knowledge of nature should not serve us to have dominion over it, but so that we can know ourselves, know it, and by that know a way by which we can exist in harmony. Knowing what their needs are, knowing what our needs are, knowing what we can give and what we can receive of them, of the other forms in this world. And that knowledge would then serve to lead to life by us becoming an integrated part, not by ruling over. But, as I said, science in this entire world is at the moment built on the Judeo-Christian idea that it is there to rule over, that it was given to rule over. And that is what is causing the destruction. And worse than that, it is the idea of the oneness, so that people are not even, persons are not trying to know it all or understand the world, but they understand a small part of it, and they're driven by one energy. Like I understand banking, and I'm driven by greed, and then that becomes all. Yeah? Or I know medicine, but I'm not driven by compassion, but I'm again driven by greed, which will lead to a completely different outcome. And that becomes all, and everybody's in tunnel vision, everybody's becoming a oneness, disconnecting from everything else, just seeing their own, my will shall be done, my desire shall be fulfilled. Yeah, it's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's taking more and more forms, this thought. And it is that God will only, the God that has dominion, will only use the knowledge that serves him and does away with everything else. I condemn that which doesn't serve me. It suppresses that knowledge. If it doesn't serve me to have dominion, it's no good, and people shouldn't know that. So it's been taken away. That is the world we're in. That is how science is being used. And yes, it is being used absolutely driven by the Judeo-Christian idea of what a God is. And that God is all. And then we wonder why it causes destruction. We wonder why nature does not play ball, because it's playing by a completely different idea. All of the universe is playing by a different idea, by the idea of the all. And we are playing by a different idea and we wonder why we don't fit in. That's why. So, really, the measure of a God, how we are of sound judgment of what it is we're actually looking at when we worship. Now there's this question in Job, to define a God. Can you bind the chains of Pleiades or loosen the belt of Orion? Do you have that power? Yeah? And I think if we have the true measure of a God, we should ask the second question, and that is, would you bind the chains of the Pleiades and loosen the belt of Orion? Now, if the answer to can you is yes, okay, we're probably dealing with a God. Yeah? With a being that has great power, has got great knowledge, and can do these things. So yes, if it can do that, we're probably dealing with a God. If the answer to the second question, would you loosen, bind the chains of Pleiades or loosen the belt of Orion, would you do that? If the answer to that question is also yes, then we should know that we're not only dealing with a God, but with a dangerous lunatic. That we're dealing with something that would willy-nilly disrupt the order of what was created. With no thought of the consequences. Why? Because it can, because it is his desire, or maybe Orion is in his way because he wants to build something else there, so it must go. Or maybe it just woke up in the morning and felt like it. But my will must be done. That may be a God, but it's also, as I said, a complete lunatic. And there then comes the knowledge that just because they have the power doesn't mean they're good. And just because the knowledge itself does not make a person good. So, and there is the whole wrong thing, where we need to have a different measure by which to judge God. How much is he within the thinking of the all? And I want to have dominion, and that's all there is. It's only a very small part of the all, and it is not all. And we must know that. We must understand that. And then the way we use science should no longer be used in that way, under that intention. And then the knowledge might serve us if we use it with a different intention. With the intention of, I have knowledge of that around me so that I can exist in peace with it. So I understand what it needs, I understand what I need. I understand, what needs to be given, what needs to be received. And I understand that both have the right to be. And that somehow we have to find a balance, a compromise. And our knowledge should serve us in finding that balance and that compromise. And understand that even the all itself is bound. That it does not create willy-nilly, but it creates new things with what came before in mind, without destroying what came before, but to add to it in a way that it can, again, exist with everything else. And in that, the all itself is not doing whatever it likes. It is bound by compassion, yes, by caring for that which already is. Anyway, so yes, science at the moment is driven by the Judeo-Christian idea, which means that science has been used completely in the wrong way, because the Judeo-Christian idea of that is God and God is all is wrong to start with. We have an idea that is the wrong foundation, and we're using our knowledge based on that foundation, and it is creating destruction. We must fundamentally change our idea of what God actually is. So I leave it at that for today, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.